Quinton, thanks for joining me again.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, Jay.
It's always a pleasure to have you as well. I maybe should just mention for those that, well, I think everybody knows Novo by now, but it's NVO in Toronto, NSRPF in the U.S., 246 million shares. I saw it earlier today at $1.20 in U.S. money, giving it a market cap of around 300 million in U.S. money, but it's also noteworthy that the company has some very significant assets as well. That is liquid assets in the form of cash and marketable securities. I don't know, by my count, it looks like something on the order of 160 million US dollars, something like that. And so the company is well funded and it's got lots going on. So uh, let's get started with now a new producer. Novo is a new producer. We've been covering it for many years before it produced, but now it's producing. It announced production of 14,890 ounces in the second quarter of this year, and 18,000. It boosted that to 18,144 ounces in Q3. But the market was expecting something higher, I think, maybe somewhat disappointed. Although for the many years I've been covering companies, I know that new producers almost never go straight up. They always have some startup issues. And so the Beaton's Creek project that Novo put into production would be no exception. There is a shortfall of due primarily, as I understand, Quinton, to lower head grades, and the company was going to try to resolve that by tighter spaced pre-production drilling, I think on 10 meter centers. Um, how are things going in that regard? I mean, are you seeing some results, positive
We
results from like a tighter spacing?
certainly we are, Jay. So to give everybody a little background, we started production around mid-February of this year.
Hmm.
And the biggest challenge we had initially was around grade control. The laboratory that we had worked out to do our grade control assaying simply got backed up, mainly due to a shortage of people. Like the preparation of samples was probably the biggest bottleneck. But long story short, we had to be light on our toes and implement visual grade control. Not ideal for any deposit,
Hmm.
especially when you're starting. So, that had challenges in itself. But we managed to kind of get things heading in the right direction by July of this year. Now, part of that, that transition is, or not transition, but I guess a learning exercise around visual grade control was we were mining different reefs at different times, different layers of conglomerate at different times. And what we found is that in different layers and different areas, there are subtleties that have to be recognized, I guess,
Hmm.
thickness of the bed, and then, its lateral continuity and so forth. And so, that imported some further challenges. But what we decided to do was get our laboratory issue worked out. So in May, we signed an agreement with Intertech to put our grade control samples through the Chrysos machine that they had purchased there. Now, they had purchased one, and then the second one was installed about a month or two later. So by mid-year, we started to get routine assays coming out from the assay lab, which was really, really helpful. Now, initially, the team on site targeted 20-meter spacings to try to get a handle on things. They were actively mining. You can't just simply park everything up and not do anything. So they got their 20 by 20 spacing holes in place in some critical areas, and assays back by, say, October, maybe early October.
Hmm.
But even with that, it was recognized that 10 by 10 meter control was needed. So they've been very aggressively drilling on 10 by 10 meter spacing now, and that's given a great deal of high resolution on exactly where each bed is and how to mine it. That has resulted in a better success here in the past few weeks. I've noticed the grade steadily increasing.
Hmm.
Part of that, is they are mining the M1 and M2 in certain areas too, which is very helpful. They're very sheet-like and continuous conglomerates. So overall, we're seeing a dramatic improvement in the grade control issues that we face. I think from here on out, the guys with 10 by 10 meter space drill grade control drilling, they should be in a good position to effectively minimize dilution. Now that said, we are still mining new areas every day that goes along. We get into new parts of the ore body. We're up on Golden Crown Hill right now, which is a pretty complicated area, but the guys seem to have their eye tuned into things, and with these 10 by 10 results as they come back, I think they'll be able to stay on top of things. So I'm very optimistic there.
Yeah, I think it's noteworthy, Quinton, if I understand the financials, despite these difficulties, it was pretty much an operating. You weren't suffering losses on an operating cash flow, if I understand the numbers. You were,
Yeah, we were treading water. I mean,
yeah.
There were months where we made pretty good money, and then there were other months where we had to. Well, for example, we had to build the tailings lift, which is a capital item in itself, so a sustaining capital item. So, the company's been basically treading water or the operation's been treading water in terms of cash flow.
Sure.
Today. We do expect that to improve going forward. It's like I said, really turning a corner here lately, and I'm very optimistic. And it's to the point now where our exploration team, is kind of given the green light to go ahead and be very aggressive, with spend on exploration. And that's really our next main thrust, is to make sure that we start exploring the district and even other areas of the Pilbara.
Yeah, I think I saw somewhere one of the corporate PowerPoint presentations that the company still has a target, or at least a desire to produce upwards to 100,000 ounces a year from Beaton's Creek. Obviously, production levels thus far fall short of that. But the point is that, as you just said, you started exploring aggressively out and around Beaton's Creek as well, right? Maybe you could talk about that, because you've had some pretty outstanding numbers that I've seen come across from different areas, out, close to, I think within, I don't know, fairly close to Beaton's Creek.
Yeah, Beaton's Creek is the deposit in the conglomerate, and that's really part of the greater Nullagine Gold Project. So we have this area around the town of Nullagine, in which we kind of class it as near mine or near production type exploration, and that includes a lot of new targets that we're finding out in the Mosquito Creek area, which is to the east of Beaton's Creek. And we have had some very good results here lately. We had some announced a few weeks ago from the Genie prospect, which is only 3 kilometers north of the mill. So, very low-hanging fruit. And then other targets. And now recently we've been drilling at Parnell Vulture, which is a very large target that we have identified through soil sampling and geologic work, really sound geologic work. And we're drilling 15,000 meters there. So we've announced that to the market. The goal of all of this is to put together basically a longer mine life. And, we want to be in this camp for a long time. So we're looking at tackling basically every exploration opportunity we can see within reason around the mill.
Mm-hmm. How close are those to the mill, Genie and Parnell? And I think there's another one, Hennigh?
Yeah, let's pick them apart. So Genie is only 3 kilometers north of the mill. Parnell's about 35 or 40 kilometers by road to the northeast of the mill, and it's easily within transport distance. And then the Hennigh target, which that's actually de Grey's target, the area that we're exploring on we'll call it Hennigh Trend, is a belt of rocks that's way over by Port Hedland. So it's not really impactful for the immediate production at Nullagine, but it's certainly a really robust target, or targets, I should say, that we've identified here recently.
Mm-hmm. Your focus had been until recently almost exclusively on conglomerate hosted gold. Is that changing?
It's changing in the sense that we are recognizing some basement targets that we think are well worth going after. Part of the issues around working in certain areas is getting native title and heritage work done. We're being very patient and diligent and trying to work with our Aboriginal partners in these areas. And so, sometimes our priorities shift to areas that we can see can be advanced sooner. So the area around this Hennigh Trend that I mentioned is kind of just north of the reserve in that area. So we think we can move that forward a little bit quicker. We're also moving the area around Comet Well and Purdy's Reward forward. We're doing that mechanical sorting test work here shortly. But we've also identified some new targets. There is a lot of activity in the Pilbara. I guess what I would say is that we kind of blaze the trail for others to start exploring, and other are coming in. Not necessarily just gold either. You're seeing lithium is very big, of course, iron ore always, but we're also seeing nickel discoveries. So we recognize that geology basically underlies our land position in places. We've got around 13,000 square kilometers, so it's not surprising to have some of these other potentials.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, very interesting. Battery metals.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I know you're focused. I know you're a gold guy, Quinton, and I know you're not going to stray too far from gold. But if there's the opportunities there, you certainly that would be great.
I think we're looking at it as a value add. Like it might not even be us that necessarily advances some of these other targets, but we're trying to identify some targets that maybe we bring in another partner or something. Some of them we tackle ourselves, at least to a degree or something. It's up for debate right now, but we do want to inform our shareholders that we do have a lot of the potential that others have seen across this region.
I've got to ask you about mechanical sorting because in my mind, that is potentially very, very big for Novo. How's that going? And could you give our listeners a sense of what it might mean? I know that I think you're going to a larger scale right now. You're testing it. Earlier scales looked extremely impressive and successful. But could you just talk a little bit about mechanical sorting and where you're going with that?
Yeah, certainly. We put out a news release on mechanical sorting test work. We'll call it field level test work that we're undertaking a couple of weeks ago. And the machine is now installed at Nullagine. So it's basically we had constructed the machine and all its peripheral equipment right next to the existing mill there at Nullagine. It simply makes it easier for us, I guess, to permit and operate there. We've got a whole bunch of bulk samples that were discussed in the news release from various projects that we have across the Pilbara. So we got stuff from Comet Well and Hennigh and Talga, and even Beaton's Creek and stuff. So we're going to put those samples through over the next few weeks here. They are basically in place, and I think most of the material has been crushed and is screened and is ready for the test work. And I can't tell you exactly where they're at this second, but I know that that's a main initiative over the next few weeks before Christmas.
Yeah, it could really be very significant, I think. And with regard to Hennigh, I think that you mentioned, I think there's maybe an orogenic target there next to it, but it won't interfere, as I understand, with the existing target that you were looking at.
That's correct. Look, this Hemi trend, we'll call it, is a basement-hosted gold system. It's associated with a certain type of intrusives that are called silicotoids, a little bit odd name, but basically they're gold-rich intrusions that seem to have generated some pretty stout gold deposits like De Grey has. We have that trend on our ground, and we will explore, but it does not impact our ability to operate the gravels, the near-surface gravels in that area.
Very good. All right. So we got to go to break now, but what could you... I guess investors just need to keep their eyes on the news releases. There's a lot of things you'll have coming out.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of exploration news, the mechanical sorting, of course, but we'll also have some updates around production out of Beaton's Creek as far as what the future is going to look like. So we're able to start talking here soon about forecasts of what to come and how we're going to build production from here forward.
Very good. Excellent.